Keir Starmer is on the ropes. His own MPs are threatening to resign and force by-elections that would lead to national embarrassment for Labour and Starmer if he doesn't give up his power grab move to remove jury trials, an 800-year-old human right in Britain, to be replaced by his two-tier judiciary that allows him to lock up his political opponents. Now, Starmer's hated by his own party. He's hated by his own voters. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was even hated by his own wife as well, considering the rumours with regards to those 3 Ukrainian rent boys going around. And of course, he's hated by us as well, the good, honest, hard-working and decent British people who fund his welfare state and his lawyers' cabal with our taxes. So today, we're going to look at what Starmer's trying to do, why he's facing a rebellion from his MPs that could see him lose his job because his own MPs even know that he's going down a very dark path. So let's take a look at what's going on here. A Labour MP has made an extraordinary attack on Sir Keir Starmer's planned jury reforms, threatening to trigger a by-election unless they are dropped, as he revealed he was once falsely accused of a crime. Carl Turner, the former Shadow Solicitor General, said he was ashamed of the Prime Minister and ashamed of David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, and called on them to stop these ludicrous proposals and get on with the hard job of sorting out the criminal justice system. The government has said it will drop juries in trials for offences with a likely prison sentence of 3 years or less. And the ability to appeal a magistrate's court verdict to a Crown Court will also be limited. So, Starmer, David Lammy, they're trying to remove jury trials for crimes where the sentence is likely to be under 3 years, so that instead of facing a jury of your peers, good, honest, hard-working British people, voters, taxpayers, instead you have to face the best friend of Keir Starmer, a lunatic left-wing lawyer who lets paedophiles off without even going to jail. He now gets to decide if you're guilty or not, and he also gets to decide how much time you spend in prison once he inevitably finds you guilty for thought crimes or speech crimes. Now, Starmer and Lammy, they also want to limit the ability to appeal a sentence if given in a magistrate's court. Again, because this allows Starmer to implement even greater political bias into our judiciary so that he and the left-wing cabal of lawyers who dominate the legal system, they can pass out sentences to anyone who want to protest against Labour or, let's say, protest against maybe even Pakistani rape gangs. Let's take a look at how this continues. Last week, Turner, MP for Kingston upon Hull East, broke the party whip for the first time since his election in 2010 to vote against the proposals. He was the only Labour MP to oppose the government and back a Tory motion. In an interview with the Sunday Times, he said he was not fearful of having the whip removed. He has warned the whips he would even consider triggering a by-election to make his principled point. He claims his own experience of the criminal justice system led him to take up the fight, which he says is confident of winning. 40 Labour MPs have already signed a letter urging the Prime Minister to reverse the plans, which they describe as an ineffective way of dealing with the crippling backlog in cases in our criminal justice system. Legislation has not yet been drafted. Turner revealed he was charged with handling stolen goods when he worked as an antiques dealer in 2002. Although the case collapsed, he said the judge warned him there was no smoke without fire, that basically admitting that he's a biased judge and he thought he was guilty without even seeing any evidence. The Labour MP believes that as a working-class kid from a council estate, he was lucky, and had it gone to trial, he would have been dealt with more fairly by a jury than a judge. Juries are seen as a filter for prejudice due to their diverse demographic makeup. Many years ago, I dealt in antiques. I bought items that turned out to be stolen, unbeknownst to me. It can happen. It did with me. I was arrested, interviewed by the police, charged and remanded in custody for court. On the advice of my legal team, I was advised on the strength of the evidence to elect for a jury trial. By the time the case came before the court, it was fairly obvious that there wasn't enough evidence for the matter to go before the jury, so it was thrown out. The prosecution offered no evidence, but the late Judge Tom Cracknell, who much later became a good friend of mine, discharged me from the court with a warning to be more careful in the future, again, basically assigning guilt to him despite the fact the judge never saw a single ounce of evidence. This experience led him, Turner, the MP for Hull East, to pursue a career in law. He studied at the University of Hull, met a professor who became an expert advisor to the independent review of the criminal courts. When I say this matters to me, it really matters to me. But from my experience at the wrong end of the criminal law, I wouldn't have become a lawyer. And if my dear late friend had had his way, I doubt very much I would have been a member of parliament. He almost certainly would have a criminal record. And that's why I'm able to say to the Prime Minister, that I'm ashamed of him. And I'm ashamed of David Lammy. Really strong words there from a Labour MP. The government must stop these ludicrous proposals and get on with the hard job of sorting out the criminal justice system, a system that has been badly underfunded by governments of all political persuasions for years. Now, this MP in Hull has first-hand experience of the two-tier justice system and how biased left-wing judges are and how they're often corrupt and work against the interests of good, honest, hard-working British people. This man, now a Labour MP, he was arrested, he was charged, he was remanded in jail just for the Crown Prosecution Service to not produce enough evidence and eventually let him out no problem. And what was the judge's response to this? Was it to chastise the police or the Crown Prosecution Service for attacking and imprisoning and holding this man in jail without enough evidence to charge him, only for those charges to later be dropped? No, the judge didn't chastise the police or the Crown Prosecution Service. Instead, he said there's no smoke without fire and that Turner should be more careful in the future, essentially saying that Turner was guilty and just got lucky that there wasn't any evidence. Again, this judge was never shown a single shred of evidence to suggest that he was guilty. Now, Turner's now a Labour MP for Hull East. Likely, it seems to be, he's one of the few Labour members left who haven't yet realised that the Labour today is not the same Labour Party that it was 40 years ago, when my grandfather was, legitimately incredibly loyal to the party, that it's no longer a friend of the working man in Britain, that it hates the working class and is doing everything within its power to destroy the average working man in Britain. But at least Turner here, this MP, he's putting his integrity and our country ahead of this government and even his own personal interest. That's why I have a lot of respect for this man, right? He's threatening to resign as an MP, a very cushy, well-paid job, if Starmer doesn't back down on his power grab. That would trigger a by-election, which would likely end up a national embarrassment for Labour and could literally lead to the downfall of this rotten Starmer government. Now, why am I so firm in my belief that this by-election, if it happens, would be a disaster for Labour? This is why. What we're looking at right here is Electoral Calculus's prediction, which works on all the different polls that come in across the country and, uses lots of fancy data science stuff to work out what the likely result of each single by-election would be in the country based on demographics and geographics and income and all of that sort of stuff. So, Hull East overview, Carl Turner, the current Labour MP, the electorate of about 70,000 people with a turnout of 42% of 2024. Labour got 44% of the votes last year. Reform got 30%, really good for an upstart party. The predicted votes, if there were a new election held today based on current polling data, Labour would get 20% of the votes. Reform would get almost 46%, a monstrous majority that gives them, right now, Labour, a 6% chance of winning, and Reform a 93% chance of winning. So if there is an election held here today or in a month or two, if that man is forced to, put his money where his mouth is, he resigns as an MP, triggers a by-election, it's almost certain to be a national embarrassment for Labour. Everyone in the country would tune in to read about it. The BBC would be forced to report on it. And Reform's victory at Labour's expense would be incredibly visibly for us all. Now, thankfully, there are about 40 Labour MPs who have already signed a letter asking Keir Starmer to stand down, to give up his Stalin-esque power grab, and there are reportedly hundreds more Labour MPs who oppose this action, but they just don't have the balls or the gall to actually go public with it. If we add all of that into the fact that there's widespread public opposition to this idea and the fact that Turner here has a little nuclear bomb to threaten the government with, right? The idea of standing down, triggering a by-election that would be an embarrassment for Labour and Starmer. I do genuinely think that actually we're going to win this here. We're going to beat this corrupt government. But unfortunately, before it gets to that point, I have to show you things are getting worse. Sarah Sackman, the courts minister, admitted last week that Labour would have curbed jury trials even if there was no court backlog. Even if, yes, the entire justification by David Lammy and Starmer for this, attack on our free rights to a jury trial in this country is that there's a backlog in jury trials and that we need to get rid of them because we can't afford it and, people are just waiting too long for trials to come and go. People ask me, this is the courts minister speaking. People ask me, Sarah, would you be doing this if there wasn't a crisis in our courts? I say yes because we need a better system where courts, not criminals, triage cases, one that makes better use of jurors' time. Attacking the government's position, Turner, the MP who threatened Starmer earlier, said, Keir keeps saying that he's anti-ideological. He loathes the idea of ideology in politics, apparently. He's a pragmatist. So why does he allow his courts minister to fess up to the fact that this plan to do away with the right to elect for jury trial in serious criminal cases is ideological? And in fact, she would be doing it even if there was no backlog in the Crown Courts. So why are we doing this? The only possible reason, this is coming from Turner again, is that Lammy has offered up savings to the Treasury. I've asked the Chancellor what the savings are, and she suggested to me that the Exchequer Secretary will be asked to speak with me, but I also intend to table parliamentary questions on what the savings are. I'm convinced that any savings will be outweighed by the need to recruit judges, train judges, and administer these new so-called single judge courts. So this isn't even really an open secret now. It's just open. There is no secret part of this. This isn't actually about fixing the court's backlog because the courts minister herself said that even if there wasn't a backlog, she would still be pushing through with this power grab. And honestly, it's time for my only real serious critique of Turner here. It seems to be that he just doesn't understand how evil his own prime minister, his own government, his own party, his own ideology actually is. He thinks that Starmer in doing this are pushing through with this reform because it will save a bit of money for the Treasury, not that it will give more power to Starmer to lock up protesters or his political opponents with the insanely biased and already two-tier judiciary that we already have in this country. In my opinion, it's obvious for anyone with eyes to see and ears to hear this is an authoritarian power grab from a Stalin-esque Starmer, terrified of his own downfall and with no way to fix the fundamental problems because of his own ideological insanity. All Starmer can seek to do is lock up his critics, hope that the voters forget that they hate him, and hopefully, in his mind at least, manage to cling on to power for a few more miserable months. Now, if you want to help me and my channel out so we grow and reach more people, like, comment, and subscribe to this video on my channel, of course. But really, the most important and best way for you to help me grow this video is to send this video to someone else. Show them what's happening and help my channel grow at the same time. Or if you want to hear about how police in the UK were just exposed as literally hiring, a child rapist to boost the number of black police officers in a traitorous diversity drive, you can watch this video right here. The Met Police have been exposed as hiring a child rapist as a police officer in recent years purely because he was black, and a special tribunal board was created to try and, let's say, stamp out racism within the police force and encourage more non-white people to join the Met Police. You heard that correctly.